So I thought I would do a little tour of my home studio, or sort of home keyboard rack and corner. Maybe a little history lesson, so before I forget everything now that I'm getting old. So we have here, this is a 1974 Stage Rhodes. It was bought by my mom, my stepfather, for me. I joined my first rock band, I was 16. This was bought from Sparling and Maurice in Downsview. They were eventually purchased, I think, by Long and McQuaid. And I don't think there's a music store there now. At the time, I believe it was the first 88 Rhodes they had ever sold. They thought I was nuts. Weighs about 200 pounds fully packed, and it's the only thing I have left from whatever little bit of time I spent on the road with the band. So it is your basic Stage Rhodes. Had very little work done to it. When I bought it, I took the thing apart completely and cleaned it all out, cleaned out the sawdust, and then put it all back together. Lubed the felts on the bottom of the hammers, and that was the last I ever did. I had it stretch tuned at one point by the guys at 12th Fret, again in Toronto, and that was it. I think this winter I'm going to take it apart and redo the hammer tips. I might even make my own, actually, and the grommets as well. Basically sounds like this. So your basic Rhodes. The none of the tone controls or volume control here are still hooked up. Everything actually comes out of some can you see them? Some holes in the side. Oh, they can kind of make them out a little bit. Let me see. Well, there's holes in the side there, so it comes straight off the harp. And I bought this with along with a Trainer bass amp and bass cabinet, and I got rid of that fairly quickly and picked up an acoustic bass head and a 412 guitar cabinet, which was the thing for keyboard players to have back then. What came next? Next came a clavinet C, which I kept for a little while and sold like an idiot. And then eventually I picked up an Oberheim OBX, which I used on the road. Tried the actually an older Oberheim 4-voice, which sounded absolutely amazing, one of the best synthesizers I've ever played. But I figured the OBX would be better on the road. I also spent a lot of time with the Prophet 5 back then, but you know, I found the Oberheim warmer. So that was that. Next up after that was a Kawai K3, which was years later, which I sold only a couple of years ago. Probably shouldn't have sold that either. It was kind of neat sounding. And after that, I picked up. We took a trip to Detroit for a wedding, my wife and I picked up this SR16 Alesis, and I grabbed the WaveStation keyboard at the same time. So I sold the WaveStation a couple of years ago as well, and had an Yamaha S90 for a while, which is what I used for my CD. It's mostly acoustic piano. The S90 was okay. Terrible synthesizer, at least in my opinion. It had some nice sounds on it, though. I thought the sampled strings with sampled vibrato, which kind of stupid, but oh well. And I ended up selling pretty well most of my stuff. Sold a Nord G2X, another one I'm kicking myself for. What else we got? I bought this old Tascam mixer. It was old when I bought it. A little dusty, sorry about that. So your basic Tascam mixer. It's more or less working, I think, for the most part. Still working. And then I picked up a digital delay, which you see there. It's from TC Electronic. And eventually I bought this here Focusrite Sapphire Firewire interface. It's not too bad, a little bit flaky sometimes. I think that's more due to Windows. So if we, hang on, let's just skip over to here. This thing apparently will work without the computer attached, but I more or less pretty well always keep that up. That's the software that controls it. It doesn't work that well without the computer, to be honest. Okay, let's see what else we got. About 2 years ago, after I got pissed off and sold everything, I ended up buying a Kurzweil K2600 XS. This is the sampler. It was pretty well stripped down at the time. I didn't know that, of course. So that's I ended up having to buy some of the ROMs and get it working reasonably well again. Of course, like everything else, I took it apart, cleaned it all up. Got to take the keyboard apart next. So this thing right now, lots of sounds on it. It's great. It's a sampler. Lots of fun. Right now it's got an organ on it. So that's the KB3 organ model, as it calls itself. Actually, I like it. Sounds great. Pianos sound great. I'm very impressed with it. Lots of fun. Then I picked up eventually ended up joining a rock band, and I needed something to wander around with. So the next thing to come was this little Korg microstation, which I bought in Boston. I was down there on business, and it's actually pretty neat sounding too. It's it's not great. Doesn't have a whole lot of memory, but it's got lots of sounds. Let's get my piano. It's not a wonderful piano, but it works. The cool thing about this is it has some software with it, so you can make some changes and mods to it, and it's good for splitting the keyboard. So live I can play, say for Santana's Smooth, I can play a little bit of organ in the bass, and then that piano part, what was that? That, and then some horns in the top end, so it's pretty handy. For rehearsals, I just bring this little thing with me. Weighs about 6 pounds. For gigs, I bring a Roland A37 controller with me. What's next? Oh yeah, the Shruti. So these things are just great. I just love these. These come as a kit from a company called Mutable Instruments, and you should really check them out. These sound absolutely fantastic. Tons of fun to play, and we'll hear those a bit later on. They're digital oscillators, analog filters, and they sound great. Lots of fun to play with. This is a SMR4 Mark I, which is the type of filter board that's in it, and this is the 4PM model. Again, it's a different filter board. So it's great. I just love these. So we'll hear those a little bit later. And then the most recent acquisition was I finally broke down and bought an iPad. Not a huge fan of this thing. I really actually only use it for music and very little else. This is actually Phaedra that's running on it now. It's a sequencer modeled after a modular style sequencer. Works okay. I wish it did a little bit more. Sent a note to the company that actually sells it, but they never replied, which is a shame, because I kind of like it. It's really easy to use and lots of fun. So the one problem, oh yeah, right, okay, and then after that came this thing. This is a Roland A90. This is a lot heavier than I thought it would be. I bought this from a gentleman who lives in Milton. Great guy, good player too. He's actually moving to Japan. And the reason I bought this, it's the EX version, so it has the card under this little panel right here. There's a synthesizer card. But the great thing about this is that it has 4 MIDI outs and 2 MIDI ins. So as a controller keyboard, it's just fantastic. Nobody makes anything like this now. I did have a problem when I first brought it home because it wouldn't actually fit in my rack. It had these huge wood end pieces on it. So I ended up, let's just skip over here, I ended up making some out of oak. So there's my my custom oak end pieces. Aren't they great? And then my friend Gary loaned me these monitors. I don't even know how to pronounce these guys' names. You might be able to see it in there. Let's see. So they're powered monitors, so I use those for near fields. And I use these, which are actually Grado SR325s for monitoring. as well. I love these. These are absolutely incredible headphones, the Grados. Just beautiful. One of them came loose, so I had to take them apart. That's why there's no grate in there, but it doesn't really, looks a little funny, but it doesn't affect the sound at all. So what else we got? The Rhodes. So the Rhodes. So we'll get to the individual instruments next.